This is Rory, who would be, what do you
Site director.
Site director here, and Rory will give us a wee bit of an idea, just as they're excavating here in Waring Street. What have we here, Rory? These would be ordinary merchants' houses here.
Well, possibly merchants' houses, but also people who worked in the Delft Square pottery, which existed between 1697 and 1725. The buildings at the front of the site were the tenements where the people who worked in the pottery lived. And we have their gardens and plots running back, shown on the 1685 map.
And they made these buildings that we're looking at now, Rory, they might run actually beyond those boards there, or might run into where the bank is roughly.
The front of them is somewhere out in Waring Street, we're not too sure, and I don't know if we'll ever get to know because of the services that run under the street.
And they would be merchants because they'd be looking out over the Farset River and Bridge Street there, so presumably they were...
Merchants. Some of them were merchants, some of them were the potters who were working in the pottery factory. And the houses are shown on the 1685 map, so the late 17th century, and they existed until 1725. They were then demolished, and we have coins from 1734, 1747, giving a fairly good date for the demolition. When the pottery went out of use, and the building we're standing in now dates to the mid 18th century, probably the 1750s. And early interpretations of it show it isn't a house, it's a square building that is manifestly not a dwelling, and we have a fireplace beside you there, and probably some form of light industry, maybe smelting metal, perhaps soapstone. We're going to have to wait for the environmental samples to be looked at, but we have a huge number of finds from the site. We have the Belfast Delft Square pottery, we've imported pottery from London, pottery from France, Germany, Italy. We have decorated clay pipes, we have animal bone, glazed floor, roof, wall tiles, we have coins, musket balls, bone combs, bone pins, metalwork, small bits of leather, huge variety of material, basically the material that people were using in their daily lives, what they were eating, what they were living, what they were eating off, storing food in.
And you'll be able to find out who actually lived here from the directory from that period?
We have the old Smith's directory, and we also have historical documentation. There was a chap called Matthew Gardner, was the main potter, and he was behind the whole pottery, but with the names of some of the other people who lived and worked in the pottery. And essentially this is the biggest open area excavation close to the old centre of Belfast so far. And the structures that are at the front at Waring Street are probably the oldest excavated buildings in Belfast. We've been here since mid-September. We have between 10 and 20,000 artefacts, much of it pottery, which can be well dated. A lot of the finds show a large amount of wealth. Some of what you were saying about the merchants, some of the imported German stoneware and the French pottery show that there were rich people around, but there was also a lot of the commoner earthenware, so it was a mixture of rich and poor living here. And it's very rare to get an opportunity to examine Old Belfast.
And how long will the site be open for, Rory, before is it a new hotel or what going on top of it?
It's a new bar is going to be built, and given the geology of Belfast, it's going to have very deep foundations. All the archaeology would have been destroyed, but we've been here since mid-September, and nearly all of the site has been excavated by a team of professional archaeologists, so we're quite happy with what's been achieved so far.
Very good indeed. Yes, just what to say about Belfast is you see the old silt here.
Yeah.
Belfast was a city on stilts.
Absolutely.
And you can see just exactly the problems they must have had built in the old days. But there's quite a bit of rough stone and bricks. Who are you using the building here?
There are,
do you think that the houses here, merchants, fairly wealthy merchants, or would have been brick or rough stone? And
the foundations of the buildings would have been those boulders you see to give it a firm base, and then on top of that they would have built red brick. I have examples from other parts of Ireland where houses of the 17th and the 18th century were constructed in the same way, especially in the plantation buildings. Good firm boulder foundations and red brick walls and internal partitions, sometimes of brick, sometimes of wood.
Well, we'll be able to see some of the stuff that you've found, Rory, on the site.
Well, I'm going to have a look at it now.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
17th century North Devon pottery. Arthur Chichester was from Devon, and when his family were given the town of Belfast, and his main base was Carrickfergus, but he built a castle now Cornmarket, along with a castle or a big house in Joymount at Carrickfergus, and he seemed to have a special deal with potters from North Devon. So we get in the 17th century, we get loads of this pottery from Devon, and that's, you can see where a handle would have come out. It's part of a quite a nice.
Gave his name to
jug.
Chichester Street.
Chichester Street, and
the old story when somebody died there or somebody collapsed there, the policeman said to him round to May Street he couldn't spell Chichester Street.
Oh, very good. Well, May and Ann Street were all, again, they were Chichester daughters or granddaughters. Anything with Donegal Street, he was Marquess of Donegal.
That's right.
So,
and he's a fine big stone in St Nicholas Church in Carrickfergus.
that's right.
So he is.
That's some of the
And I
bluff,
think old
yeah.
Sir Francis Chichester was the same family too.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they intermarried with the
round the world sailor.
Chichester Clark, obviously, would be
That's
the
right.
other one.
That's
Delfware from the Belfast Delfware pottery. Pottery of a different type. This is Bristol. It's called Bristol
nice.
Staffordshire comb slipware. And that's 17th and 18th century as well.
So they'd be importing this
Importing this
and
high
then
quality
exporting
material.
their own.
Exporting their own as well, and exporting the clay, the Belfast and Carrickfergus clay, and the potteries in Bristol and Liverpool and London would be creating pottery and then exporting it back to Belfast. So we had a continuous circle. Fragments of saggar from the pottery kiln, these would have been put in. There would be larger cylindrical vessels with props that the plates would have sat in within the kiln. Much of the material still here is all being dumped around. Animal bone from the days before wheelie bins. All your rubbish was thrown out. The bones can tell us a lot about the economy in and around Belfast, what sorts of animals were being kept. In the 17th century, before the rise of the industrial kind of image of Belfast, Belfast was primarily a pastoral economy. It was exporting things like leather and hides and butter. And so this will be able to tell us what types of animal they were
keeping or eating even.
And
from
eating,
that point of
and
view.
also from the age of the bone, we'll be able to get an idea of slaughter patterns, and that tells us about the whole diet and dairy and farming practices. So, although this looks like an insignificant bone, it can tell us an awful lot about the life of the people. We have fragments of clay pipe stem, basically
The old
ceramic cigarette butt. Tobacco came in from the New World to England in the late 16th century. Our earliest documented evidence for it is around 1600, certainly in Ulster anyway. So these are probably 100, 150 years later, but clay pipes being ceramic are very breakable, so once they broke, they were thrown away, but they can be fairly closely dated as well. And that's pretty much it. I mean, a lot of this, what looks like stones, are all from the byproduct of the production of pottery.
What about coins, Rory?
Coins are in the DOE, I'm afraid. We have coins from the 1670s and from the early 1700s as well. And some of the other coins we might be able to get conserved and get further dates. But again, just gives us an idea of the wealth of the people living here, and gives us quite good dating.
And then these houses were around Belfast at that time had a lot of big gardens. Remember when Anders Macaulay's house, the High Sheriff's house was there, and he had orchards and so on where Anders Macaulay's house
That's
now.
right. And,
so I'm assuming here that been
Corn Market would have been the Chichester private house. It was a Jacobean house with large formal gardens. And the castle burnt down in 1708. For nearly 100 years, it was undeveloped. And there was because the Chichesters owned Belfast, there was legal court cases, and it was only around towards the end of the 18th century that the city corporation got back control of planning in Belfast, and Belfast was able then to develop. And there was higgledy-piggledy on this side, but towards the end of the 18th century it becomes a more formal development, certainly in South Belfast behind the City Hall. And until about 1800, until the White Linen Hall was built on the location of the City Hall, High Street was the main street in Belfast, the access being between the old medieval chapel, St George's, and what would have been the market house at the corner of Corn Market and of Chichester's Castle. After about 1800, when the White Linen Hall was laid out, basically get the access changing to what is now Royal Avenue. So where we are is the core of the old plantation town, but we also know it was the core of the medieval town as well.
Well, Rory, going off this side for a second, but just what's your feelings? Just behind us here, you have the bank at the four corners. which led to the Harpers, Blind Harpers Festival. And of course we all know old Henry Joy was tried there and then taken to Cornmarket and strung up. And it's empty now. What do you think's going to happen? That leaving this fine building behind us here?
It's a listed building, so not very much can happen to it.
Well, we know in some cases these listed buildings have happened to disappear fairly quickly.
Well, this part of Belfast, from St Anne's down to High Street, is called Cathedral Quarter, and to put it bluntly, they're trying to make a Temple Bar out of it, rejuvenate it. It was very run down for years. And so there's a lot of new buildings, shops, restaurants and bars being opened, but also there's going to be historic plaques put up round Cathedral Quarter to give people a sense of history, because not that many Belfast people, to be honest, have a sense of Belfast going back to medieval period, let alone the plantation period.
Yeah.
So it will be to educate and entertain, should we say.
Well, that's great, Rory. That gives us a bit of an idea as to what and who lived on the site and what happened on the site. So that's grand, Rory, and thank you very much indeed.
You're
for
more
letting
than
us look
welcome.
around it. Thank you.
The dig ends in 4 days. So
Just to sort of myself in a week.
yeah, if you would. At least you'll have a look at the size. I know they'd be falling in your head. So
As I take it in,
step, yeah, step out too bad. What do you think you can safely?
but they would be just a little bit like
So it has
This
to
is a wee spoon that you've just found.
well, that's Graham found over there, inside one of the drains.
Uh-huh.
And it's probably late 18th or 19th century. But it just shows that not everything was made of wood or metal. Bone. We got a lot of bone artifacts, pins, and
This is Belfast in 1685. Not very big, and hopefully we'll be able to see some photographs now of the houses that 40 years ago would still have been seen, that were in Belfast at this stage in 1685. Here we can see the Farset River flowing underneath High Street, and we'll be able to see it in the flesh, although now it's mostly covered over. we'll be able to see St George's Church, which replaces this old church in High Street, and going up High Street to the market house at Corn Market. We'll be able to see it, the castle where the British Home Stores is now, and coming on up Castle Street into Millfield